had a good break, and we're back with some of our distinguished speakers to host a discussion on innovation as the theme of this conference suggests. And this panel discussion will be moderated by Jada, Neil, and I. And as a reminder to our panelists, please try to limit your responses to 2 to 3 minutes. That way we get to talk more to all the panelists and ask a variety of questions. But I think we'll go ahead and start with introductions to our panelists.
Okay, so first off, we have Dr. Sabah Ul-Hassan. They possess over 15 years of experience as a scientist spanning multiple disciplines and sectors. Dr. Ul-Hassan was recognized in their academic career as an outstanding alumni from the University of Utah and also received the Legacy Award from UC Merced. And during their graduate studies, they were established as in the emerging field of venom microbiomics and put forth the Biota project for science education and outreach to empower diverse audiences to claim agency of science communication in their communities. A first-generation American to Pakistani and Indian parents, Dr. Ul Hassan takes pride in their South Asian heritage and Muslim identity, and these days they operate as an informatics scientist in the biotechnology sector, questioning current paradigms in science and working towards becoming a kinder human than yesterday.
And next we have Mr. Roger Krishnan. He has spent the first 15 years of his career as a chemical engineer slash scientist, developing products in the pharmaceutical industry in roles of increasing responsibilities. Then he spent a couple of years advising startups and as a consultant. For the last 5 years, he has been managing and advancing innovative research and technologies originating at his university. Mr. Krishnan has a Bachelor in Science in Chemical Engineering from Cornell University, a Master in Science in Pharmaceutics from Long Island University, as well as another Master in Science in Law from Northwestern University, and an MBA from the University of Notre Dame.
And finally, we have Ms. Karla Paredes Aguilar. Karla is a senior undergraduate at the University of Arizona studying planetary science and educational psychology. She does research in astrobiology and science communication, both of which are crucial parts of her career. And as a space grant intern, she has worked with the Arizona Astrobiology Center and Lunar and Planetary Laboratory on a NASA-funded research project, as well as the Linking Southwest Heritage through Archaeology 2022 program.
So now we will go ahead and begin our panel discussion. The three of us will be moderating and just asking questions to all of our guests. So, Dr. Ul-Hassan, as someone whose academic journey spans multiple disciplines from biology, chemistry, and bioinformatics, can you share your journey into STEM and what inspired you to pursue this field?
Yeah, of course. And I just want to say thanks for having me. Thanks to the other panelist speakers, and thanks for organizing this. And you can refer to me as Sabah. I don't need to, I appreciate the formality, but Sabah is also fine. So I, first generation, and so I feel like maybe this is a good audience to be speaking with. There's a lot of pressures when you're the eldest, when you're first generation, when your parents are coming from somewhere else, and all the sacrifices they've made to make sure that that you can kind of be here in the States and make the most out of what's available. And I think it's very timely, right? I can only imagine being in high school, being in college, and just all of the things going on in the US and especially in STEM, and trying to figure out, well, how am I going to navigate this space? And so for myself, I was very interested in marine science. I was very interested in being a wildlife biologist and veterinarian. So I would volunteer at animal shelters. I also really liked art, but not necessarily lucrative lines of work, even though there are things I was passionate about. And so that was kind of where I would hit this crossroads of how can I make sure that I can, be there and like give back to my family and reciprocate for all that they've done, while also doing the things that I'm passionate about and have those be the same thing rather than separate things. And I remember even talking to my family and saying that, I was interested in doing marine science because we had a activity, I think, in 11th grade to kind of decide what we wanted to do or think about that in a class. And then I came home and talked to them about that dinner, and they were like, how are you going to do marine science when you grew up in Utah? Like, there's no ocean. At that point, I'd only been to the beach, I think, maybe a handful of times until I was 21, 22. And I did, as was mentioned, I went to the University of Utah, but I had also gone to UC Berkeley. So I had only applied to two schools. I got into both. One gave me a scholarship. Well, both of them gave me a scholarship, but one would have cost me a lot of loans to go there versus UC Berkeley was the top university at the time in the country. I don't know all the stats. I don't keep up with things now, but I think it's maybe still well ranked. I don't know. But so that was a really tough choice of, okay, do I go to a place that is going to have like a lot of prestige, or am I going to go to a place that I can be closer with family and it's, full scholarship and all those things and kind of financially driven. And that I would be able to really be closer to the ocean and be able to do this thing of both pursuing science and they were still kind of wanting me to do like medical school and be a doctor, kind of the typical South Asian like acceptable career lines of work of doctor, lawyer, engineer, business owner. And so how can I make both of these things work? And I decided to stay locally, and I think that was a great decision for me because there was some financial reasons for being influenced. I didn't have that kind of support to help with those things. And I think one piece of advice, if I can, for anyone that's thinking of going to school is, so I was able to get all of my school covered, all the way from, my bachelor's, my master's, my graduate. And if you have support from your family, that's wonderful. I would still encourage that in whatever way you can to get scholarships and have that covered in some way. And if that's not in the US, go somewhere else, which is an even better experience. Like people go to Germany, people go to Australia, wherever, to get their school done. Because these days, I think once you get to the job side of things, people really it does make a little bit of a difference. Like if the fact that you see my CV, it says like UC Merced, right? Versus if it said UC Berkeley. That has a very subtle difference to some people if they see Stanford versus UC Merced. But I think also it's about the personality of the person, and people can really see that if you're an ambitious person, you have drive, you have motivation. And so I think as long as you have that already, it doesn't make that much of a difference. And it's really about what you make out of the experience. And so looking back, this is maybe a longer answer to the question you're hoping, but looking back, and my input to all of you of that path is to go ahead and think of all the pieces and what you want to do and how you can make that work with the resources you have available to you, and not being so concerned of like I need to go to this school and how am I going to make that work with this amount of money, or I need to have this type of degree and how am I going to make that work with my passion. Just have that motivation, have that drive, and just kind of have a little bit of belief that like it will work out in the way if you're putting
All
in that
right.
energy. And so
Right. Oh,
um, yeah, I just wanted to wrap up and say that with the path and kind of like where this is going for challenges along the way, and sorry, for challenges along and how I got into STEM is sorry, I know I'm maybe rambling a little bit here, and I want to give other people a chance on the panel, but just to say that now I do things that are kind of coming full circle and my family's happy. So I do stuff in the medical sector and I also do things in marine science. And anyways, happy to talk about that, and I will, and so other people can talk too.
all right. Thank you for the answer. Moving on to Mr. Krishnan. Your career has spanned multiple sectors from pharmaceutical research all the way to technology commercialization. Could you share your journey into STEM and maybe the decision process into switching these industries? Switching between these industries, sorry.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for your question. And again, thanks to everybody for organizing this, all the students. Thanks to Rachna, and thanks for inviting me. That's a really good question. It probably can span a whole lecture about this. It's very interesting. I think a unique journey. I'll try to keep it really concise, and we can explore those maybe later. But at first, I want to say that, for me, it was teachers that inspired me to eventually get into chemical engineering. So my high school chemistry teacher was my inspiration in that journey. And then, I had the good fortune of doing multiple internships almost every year I was in high school, summer internships. And That's not at that time. That was rare, and I was fortunate because talk about networking. I found these internships through my parents, who connected me with somebody that was able to offer me these offer opportunities. And really interesting way that these happened. It just so there the tidbit there is, there are opportunities. Try to explore different connections through family. But doing these internships, what they taught me was not just like the theory, right? Like what's actually happening. I worked at Mobile Science, Mobile Corporation, the oil company, and I was doing, just basic tests for them, measuring viscosity of oils and things. But just talking to people and really gave me the realization of what the field does, right? So when you go into college, let's say, you understand, you got all this theory, but it's, you have to keep motivated. And the one way to keep motivated is to understand how to apply that theory, right? And so that's really helped me a lot, is all the internships I did basically every year and even throughout college. Being able to, take what I learned in school and apply it and the job, and then taking what I learned in the job and being able to ask questions, in school, ask the right questions and think about it the right way. So I started my career as a chemical engineer, and the reason is I went into the pharma industry because I thought it was a way that I could help people. I was walking through the pharmacy one day as an intern, and you don't really realize this, but I was working on a product for mouthwash. I was working on Listerine, Listerine mouthwash, developing new formulations for it and toothpaste. And you don't think about it much, but when I went down the pharmacy aisle, I see like all these different products there, right? And I'm like, oh my God, think about this. Like the products that I work on are going to appear on these shelves and they're helping people. And that really, I mean, it really hit me at that time. And that's the reason I went into the pharma industry. I really felt like that was a way that I could help people and improve people's lives. So went into the pharma industry, right? And just to make my answer a little shorter, I learned a lot. It was a great journey. But your question was like, how did it like evolve? So my philosophy is that has been, and something to share is just be ready for anything that comes along, any interesting opportunities, pursue your passion. There could be a lot of doors that open up and go and explore it. Don't be worried about trying to explore those things. You can always leverage your experience in one job to another job. So just, keep that open-mindedness. And that's what I did. And I learned something, in the pharma industry, which is where does innovation actually come from, right? So where does, new medicines, new medical devices, where do they actually originate? And what I started learning, and I wasn't the only one, this was back in 2013, there were others talking about this, but they actually come from universities, academic medical centers, startups. So I wanted to go closer to that. So that's why I made the switch, retooled myself, learned about entrepreneurship and worked with various startups in the healthcare field, and then eventually got into the field that I'm in right now in technology commercialization. And I really feel because I have the industry experience, I can relate. So I can help these university technologies advance and make it over into industry. So I'll stop there. There's a lot more that I could say, but hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for that answer. Now let's move to Miss Aguilar. As someone studying both planetary science and educational psychology, your work bridges scientific research and effective science communication. What inspired you to pursue these fields, and did you face any challenges along the way?
Hi, thank you so much for having me on this panel with such impressive panelists. Thank you. So I originally I moved to the United States when I was 14, so I think I have a very similar experience to maybe what Sabah was saying. Family pressure and wanting to do good for your family and the efforts that they've made. I came from Honduras, and came to the United States, immediately got thrown into high school. By the time people start high school, everybody's thinking about, you're either thinking about college or you're not. So you're either starting to set up yourself for your growth in your future, or you don't know how to navigate that. Personally, I did not know how to navigate that. My parents did not go to college, so I'm also a first generation student. I was told very early on by my parents that they could not afford to send me to college, but community college was an option. So when I graduated high school, the first thing that I did was get a job. I worked at a daycare, and I was really good at it. I was really good at working with children. I was really passionate about it. When I graduated, I did the only thing I knew how to do, which was work at that daycare and study. I go to school, so I continued pursuing. I actually wanted to be a teacher of some sort. I wanted to continue my education career. In that part, when you're going to community college and you're, going towards an associate or some sort of certificate, most of the time you're also encouraged to take, or you have to take math and science, just basics classes. So as one of my science classes, I decided to take astronomy, and it changed my life. Honestly, I did not know, I had no idea that astronomy was a thing, coming from a country where, very similar to what Sabah said, like my options were be a doctor, be a lawyer, or pretty much it, or focus in agriculture and stuff. I did not know what I wanted to do, but when I was in that class, I remember thinking that that is what I wanted to study. I wanted to study the stars, and I wanted to study space, and I just, whatever it took to get there, I could do it. I'm very fortunate that my parents have always supported me in everything that I do. As long as they see that I'm working towards something, they're like, okay, we believe in you. So I came to the University of Arizona to study astronomy. I did 3.5 years of astronomy before I switched over to lunar and planetary science. When I found that there was actually a different section of my love for astronomy, which was more something that could be more tangible. When you're studying astronomy, it's a lot of computer work, it's a lot of coding, it's a lot of detachment. And for me, having worked in education, and I'm gonna go back to that right now. So I did education, I worked at schools, and then I quickly realized that personally, as a teacher, there was only so much you can do for a student. You are kind of boxed into like this classroom, and I know that I could do a lot more for students or more for people in general than just be in this classroom. So I decided to still pursue my science communication stuff. I wanted to share what I was learning about astronomy with people. I wanted to tell them and encourage other people that in high school didn't know that they could do something like astronomy or something like planetary science. So I continued working on that. I got my minor in educational psychology, which really made me understand how people learn and what are the things that make people kind of motivated to learn or stick to a certain I guess, career or path. So I wanted to encourage that. We have a lot of experiences, growing up. Maybe a teacher told you that you were not good at something, like maybe you weren't good at math, and so now you think you hate math, and so you just have to give it another shot, because I thought that, and then I was really good at it, and then I loved it. So as connecting these two fields has been really different. Always in my classrooms or in like my classes and stuff, I'm kind of odd, I guess, because everybody has like minors are STEM related, but I have this humanities background or in education. So now I think that has really helped me a lot in being able to communicate the things that are important to other people, to when I'm talking to the public or other students, and also bringing to awareness that you are not just your schooling, you're a person that has goals, and you can have more drive in you than just good grades. You can have goals in the future. You can want to be, a good daughter or somebody that people are proud of. So I think that I've struggled a lot, Sabah mentioned about financial struggles in college and stuff. Personally, I had to take loans, but I was very clear with myself in the beginning. I have gotten scholarships since I started, but I did take loans. I told myself that money wasn't going to be a reason why I didn't get an education. I don't care if I have to pay it till the day that I am, gone. But my dad told me, I don't know if this is a secret, but he's like, everybody's got debt. everybody's got that. You don't see that number in your, like, people have a symbol in their head, but everybody lives with that. And so I thought, okay, if it means that I have to pay some money, or I'm not gonna let money be the reason why I don't go to college. So as time went on, I got more and more scholarships, which really helped. But in the beginning, that was my reality. So I think it's approaching the end. I just want to say that um, my journey has been really difficult and strange, but it's also really rewarding. And I've met a lot of great people. I've been open to a lot of opportunities, and it's taken me to places that I never thought somebody like me could go. So right now, my future is uncertain the way that the government is doing stuff, but I am hopeful, and I know that I've gained a lot of really amazing skills and network with a lot of amazing people during my college experience. So I'm very grateful for that, and I know that it will serve me in the future. So
Thank you. And then we're going to ask some more questions. Just please, just as we're limited in time, I would ask to keep them a bit shorter, but thank you so much for your insights. And then Sabah, your work as a scientist and advocate emphasizes a lot of innovation, whether it's like questioning scientific paradigms or engaging diverse communities. So how do you view failure in the innovation process, and what lessons have you learned from any setbacks?
I'll try to kind of go forward and keep my look at time. This is like 3 minutes per answer, something like that, so we all can have enough time to hopefully discuss. And thanks again for doing this. Yeah, so that's a good question. So kind of going back, and I tend to ramble, and so kind of going back to my previous response, and connecting that. So I was in my life, I feel like I've pretty consistently been reached different, forks in the road where it's like this or that, like this or that choice. And sometimes, there's multiple choices. I think right now we're in a world where we're just overwhelmed by choice and trying to figure out, how can I do what I'm passionate about in a way that is also applied, which is things that like Raja commented on, or things that are helping people that both Raja and Carla have commented on. And so that's something in terms of innovation, I think intention is very important. And so I think in this world we're living in now, there's this paradox, or there's this juxtaposition of, like find the cure for cancer, right? Or like get the Nobel Prize or what have you. And I think there's this, people are so focused on maybe the ego part of that. And I don't know, everyone's a different place in their life, but people are like, I need this degree, or I need this. And I don't know if people are familiar with George Washington Carver. He's a famous scientist from a while ago. He came up with peanut butter and just so many different plant biology discoveries over 100 years ago. But he's one of my favorite scientists. And there's an interview with him where he's just talking about uh, the key to being a good scientist is the death of ego. And I really believe that. And at the same time, I feel whatever you're passionate about, whether it's science or whatever you're thinking, entrepreneurship, what have you, the intention I think is important. And I think if people have a good intention where they really are like, I really want to find the cure for cancer to help people, and it's only they can answer that in themselves, right? And that it's really driven by that, versus, oh, I want like the fame or the recognition that comes with the cure for cancer, which is a different intention. And so in terms of your question and failure, I think if you have that intention and grad school is all about failure. Like you cannot get a PhD without being comfortable with failure, like 90% of the time. You're not going to make it. And that is what being a graduate student is, and a scientist, and I think in life, right? It's like life is not just success, happiness, happiness, happiness. Like there's hills and valleys, and that's totally normal. And the more you can be okay with that, I think the more successful you will be in the long term. So that would be my input of just thinking about your intention of the things that you want to be innovative about, and what the real reason is behind that, and why. Like if it is maybe something more ego driven, why? And is there something that, can have a bit more sincere intention of that innovation? And then also just knowing that failure is a part of the process. And there's all these quotes that float around of like, if you don't start, like, you're not ever going to get anywhere. I think anyone that's done sports or has a hobby, like you could really see that, right? Where you started a month ago versus 3 years ago versus 5 years ago. You can really see how much you need to just start somewhere and be okay that it will be a continuous learning process. That's my response to that.
Thank you for that astute answer. Now moving on, Mr. Krishnan, with the rapid evolution of pharmaceuticals, biotech, and university-driven innovation, Staying ahead requires continuous learning. Looking ahead 5 to 10 years, what specific skills or knowledge areas should young innovators be developing now to stay ahead of the curve in your field? Should they focus on interdisciplinary skills, such as combining law, business, and STEM, as you have, or do you suggest a different path that might be more beneficial?
Yeah, no, thanks for the question. Great question. And, by the way, all great insights by the other panelists, and, totally agree with that. In terms of your question, so yes, being, interdisciplinary is going to be huge. And of course, as everybody knows, AI is huge right now. So, and data. So understanding that is going to be, I think, very important. And that's in different ways in terms of managing data, in terms of security, in terms of ethical types of concerns, especially with health-related data, and also, of course, the technical side with AI and learning that. One thing just to comment on, I think maybe all of you may know already some amount of coding. But these days, especially in the last few years, with Gen AI, I have found even myself last year I've been learning how to do Python coding. And I can tell you that compared to years ago, it is much easier to learn now because of Gen AI. You could ask and learn yourself how to do Python coding. And there are environments such as, the Colab environment by Amazon, which is great. It kind of helps you do the coding. Eventually, it's going to move towards what they call prompt engineering, right? Where you could just ask the machine to tell you how to code certain things. But having said that, I think I'm a believer in lifelong learning. So I think you have to continuously learn, continuously evolve. Uh, you just keep in mind like your career trajectory is not a straight line. And I think the other panelists also reflected this. And don't think that you get one job or one type of job to begin your career and that's it. I mean, there are some people that stay in a job and in a company for 20, 30 years, although it's rare now. But just think about like that. Don't be disappointed if you get into a job initially, but it's not your ideal job. That's not the end. I mean, you're going to keep going. You're going to find other doors. You're going to jump into other types of fields that are of great interest for you. So I think it's always continuously learning is extremely important in my regard. Now, the one thing that I would say in terms of a skill that I think is very important is the idea. So I think the skill is appropriate for scientists. If you become a business person, if you become a project manager, whatever it is you become, is you need to know how to understand an innovative concept and be able to explain that concept to anybody. So that's the skill that I developed, which is the idea of talking about this, let's say, technology or this research to a person that's an expert in the field, to a person that's a business person, to a layperson, which I call, or not I call, people call the grandmother test. So you should be able to explain what your detailed research is so that your grandmother or even your parents can understand what you're talking about. So that's a communication skill that will really help you. Any aspect of life, you need to be able to communicate, what that technology is properly and be able to talk to any person in any field and with any type of background and make them understand. So I think that these are some of the things that I would encourage and just to keep track of. But I think bottom line, things are going to be evolving and, AI is there, but the idea is to be able to, roll with it, to be continuously engaging and learning and understanding where the field is going.
Thank you so much for that answer. And now we'll ask a question to Ms. Aguilar. In both research and outreach, creative solutions often emerge from everyday experiences, whether it's a question sparked by a childhood curiosity or a realization from an interaction at an outreach event. Can you share an example of how everyday life or a simple personal experience led to a creative solution or idea in your work?
I guess maybe I'll just I don't have a specific experience in mind, but I can just tell you that I have these moments every day. I try, just like Raja was saying about, being open to new solutions and being able to talk to people about different things and be able to connect other, I guess, disciplines with your own and just kind of know how to speak like that. It also translates into your brain in a way of like utilizing different tools from that you get from different people and from different people, different classes, different experiences in your life. So as somebody that I think has a lot of like dual brain stuff, or at least I try to, I'm trying to be really considerate of myself and other people, and also try to be real true to my science and science in general. I think that in everyday experiences, when I have a situation that's, really silly things, like maybe something is leaking somewhere in my house and we're like, okay, what do we do? Well, I just got to think about, resourcefulness. All the things that we have learned guide to eventually you being a really resourceful person, just as if you would do in science. So just, I think trusting myself helps me really trusting in the fact that I have a lot of I experience a lot of things and I'm open to learning a lot of stuff. Um, Helps me in those situations to come up with really creative solutions, or really just maybe simple solutions that people sometimes overlook. I just trust that, okay, I can do it. There's a problem. We can do this, we can do that, we can find different ways of solving a problem, or just at least like handling something in the moment. I try really hard not to get overwhelmed, because I know that there's somebody out there can figure it out, right? Somebody out there can figure this out. So that means that probably I can try to think like somebody that could figure it out, and eventually that thing like comes to fruition. Maybe it sounds a little bit more abstract than I would like it to make it sound, but I think trusting yourself to know that there are sometimes things that come up and you have the ability to do something about it, even if it's just, something very simple or just a creative solution. If you study, especially STEM, I think have a lot of different skills and tools that you've learned over your studying time that you don't think that kind of blend into your mind, but they do. So I would just say trust yourself that you have the capability, and not just do that. I can do it. Somehow I can do something, and I always end up finding some silly solution to stuff. So
Thank you. Thank you so much for that answer. And um, thank you so much, everyone, for joining today, and to our panelists for all those wonderful, wonderful answers. We really gained a lot of insights into your journeys in STEM, and also how we can apply like creative skills, whatever.
I think Ela was having some connection issues. But anyways, we just want to say, yeah, thank you for the panel. It was great. Moving forward, we're going to move to our second speaker session. And for our participants, whoever speaker you had for the first session, you'll be moving to the other speaker for this session, and that starts at 11:50. So until then, just make sure to join your session, and then once that happens, we'll have our closing remarks. After that, you're free to go. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. This meeting is about to end, so we'll see you in the second speaker session.
Neil, just quick question. Wait, before you
Yes.
disconnect, can we ask somebody if there's any questions for the panelists as well? Because I think we do have